want you to imagine that your company, your organization just experienced a breach. How would you handle it? Do you even know? Would communications be good or would they be bad? Would people be running around like everything was on fire? Or would you stay cool, calm, and collected? That is the topic for today's podcast, the Social Engineer Podcast, the Security Awareness Series. We are on episode 317. I'm Chris Hanegi, CEO and founder of Social Engineer LLC, the Innocent Lives Foundation, and the Institute for Social Engineering. You might notice I have a co-host here. It's none other than our senior account executive here at Social Engineer, Jowan Joseph. Nice to have you, Jowan.
Thanks for having me, Chris. I really appreciate it.
So you're going to notice some difference in this podcast coming up. We're going to change the whole format. We got together as a team and we talked about how can we really make security awareness podcasts the most benefit for you. So what we realized is we have a team here of varying experiences and coming from all different backgrounds and now working here doing amazing amounts of social engineering work. So we're going to take a different part of our team every month, bring them on as a co-host, and we're going to discuss a topic that really will hopefully help you with your security awareness programs and thinking a little bit about security awareness from every angle, whether it's your kids and your family or your organization. And this month, you already heard what we're going to talk about. But before we get to the topic, as always, we are sponsored by our own company here, Social Engineer. So if you're interested in security awareness services that surround around offensive security, you need to go check out social-engineer.com. We've added a whole host of new things, including AI-based social engineering and something unique called callback phishing. I'm not even going to tell you what it is. Go to social-engineer.com and you can find out more. And if you like social engineering and you want to have legal and family-friendly chat, then we have a Slack channel you can come into. It's open to anyone. The link's in the show notes. And if it's not working, because sometimes it gets old, just ping me or Jowan on LinkedIn and we'll get you the actual link. And I want to invite everyone here to go visit innocentlivesfoundation.org. If you're not familiar with the nonprofit, we've been around for 8 years and we help geolocate people who traffic children and abuse children and produce child abuse material. And we've successfully done over 570 cases. I'm really proud of the work that we do there. So go check us out, innocentlivesfoundation.org. If you're a parent or a caregiver, there's tons of information on the site to help you talk to your kids about this. And if you want to support our mission, you can do that through donations or volunteering to help. And if you like the music on the podcast, that's none other than the band Clutch. We've been fans of them. Well, I've been fans of them since I was 17. And as you all know, Neil helped me start the ILF 8 years ago. And they're gracious enough to allow us to use their music to open up the podcast. So give them some love at clutchmerch.com and go see them live. That's the best way to take them in. And last but not least, if you like this episode, give us a thumbs up, a heart, a like, whatever it is that you're listening on, and keep your topics coming in. If you have a particular topic you want to hear about social engineering or security awareness, put it in the notes in the YouTube channel. We read all of those, we comment on all of those, and we will definitely add your theme to our list. Okay, now with all that being said, let's get to our theme, Jowan. So we talked about this being breached. Why are we talking about this month?
I tell you, we had such a wonderful, wonderful tabletop simulation exercise this past weekend with our local ISC 2 chapter in Orlando. And it was just very eye-opening in terms of the content, but also how the teams played together and interacted together to come up with, effective solutions to this breach, this simulated breach. It was amazing.
And so let's define it for anyone who's listening. If you're not familiar with the concept of a tabletop exercise, basically we created a fake company because everyone that came was from different companies. Normally, if we do this for your company, we're using your company, right? But we created a fake company that is a global presence and you've just been breached kind of like by scattered spider type of thing, a phone call, you got malware, you got ransomed, you got all this data out there getting leaked and we gamified it. So we have a dice. You get to roll the dice, and the first roll depends what department are you in. Are you in legal? Are you exec? Are you in PR, HR, IT? We have those 5 different departments. Then once the whole teams are split up into their different departments, you have a mission, right? So everybody's got to come up with a statement that supports their department's mission, but they got to be unified and they got to be able to communicate. So we had 4 phases. Phase 1. I mean, what stood out to you the most, Jowan, when you were watching that first phase?
It was interesting, Chris, because when we first got there, obviously it's early in the morning. It was a Saturday. It's early in the morning. People, they're not even awake yet. They're trying to drink their coffee. They're trying to get into this. And you can tell by looks on some of their faces, like, oh, here we go again, another presentation, another simulation exercise we have to go through. But as soon as you explain the directions and we got to that first phase and we broke up into the teams and split everybody off, like everybody's just lit up automatically with what they had to do. And I was really impressed with how they got into their roles very, very quickly. Even though, these are IT guys, so they're not, they're not HR professionals, they're not PR professionals, they're not legal, but they became those things, those departments in a very, very short amount of time. It was great to see.
Yeah, what I loved is because we gave them all, everyone got a packet. And in their packet, if they were HR, they got told, okay, here is normal HR mission. Here's what you care about. Here's what, you care about the people, the morale inside. If you're PR, you care about the public facing image. If you're exec, you care about fixing this as fast as possible. If you're IT, you're trying to find out, how did this happen? Why is this such a big deal? And if you're legal, you're just like CYA, don't say anything, make sure everything's good, right? And I'm with you. I was amazed to see how these people got into their roles, even though the only experience they'll have is IT. Mm-hmm. And for me, the biggest was the PR people. Yep. When Rosa was there with us, and when she approached the table to ask how things were going, they were like, we can't talk. Do you know how stressful it is coming up with 5 different statements? And they were really stressed. And I was like, oh, wow, they really are in this role right now. And we had the timer up because every phase was an hour. So we had the timer up on the board. And I honestly, when we were planning it, Jowan, I thought an hour, that's too long. But holy mackerel, that hour went fast, didn't it?
Yeah. And it was interesting, the feedback from the participants was, when they saw the time on the timer up there, on the countdown, you think that's a lot of time. You think an hour, 45 minutes is a lot of time. But when you're in a breach situation, a very critical, mission critical type of situation, that time goes by like seconds, and that's what they figured out, that, man, we have limited amount of time to get this message out.
Yeah. And then we had a couple cool twists. So we had a number of rogues, what we called them. These were people that even us as a team didn't know, because we planted them in the envelopes and the envelopes were mixed up, and then the dice chose who chose what. And if you got a rogue, that means your mission while you were on that team was to undermine everything. And the one that stood out to me was the HR, because they only had 2 HR people. I think there's absolutely no way we're going to get one rogue out of 2 with 5 envelopes there. But the guy that was there kept making statements that were like, if we don't get this right, someone's getting fired. This might cost you your job. And it didn't hit me that he was rogue, because he's such a nice guy, Dave. Like, he's like the nicest guy. And then when we find out later on he's a rogue, I'm like, that's why those statements were so harsh. And it kept cutting the morale points down in the company. I thought that was an epic way of doing it.
Yeah, it really was, and then being able to quantify, the morale that goes along with that, how the point system was set up. I think that was very, very key, because it made everyone be very, very conscious of not only the message they were saying, but also how they were communicating with each other in their departments, but also the other department, how they communicated interdepartmentally. So I think having those different metrics really, really made them more acutely aware of what they were doing and how they're communicating.
Yeah, and what's interesting about that is we gave them, there was of course some rules. So you can, if you think you figured out who a rogue is, you can make that accusation. And if you're right, the rogue gets fired, and that means whatever damage he's done or she's done is now erased. But if you're wrong, you lose 5 morale points, because you basically accuse an employee of being an insider threat without being an insider threat, and that would be terrible. So we had one team that was 100% sure they found a rogue, and they were wrong. And man, that just killed morale after that. People are looking at everyone like, oh no, I can't do that, kind of thing. And it was really good. And then we threw in a couple other twists where, based on their points or a time or an event that occurs, would trigger a rogue event. Like the first one was a reporter issued a story. No, it wasn't a reporter. It was an ex-employee went on Reddit and posted that he knew this was going to happen because he said that there was a flaw. And then a vendor backed that up by saying, yep, we told them to patch this months ago and they didn't do it. Ooh, that set a whole series of things in motion.
Yeah. That's very real world, right? Because when you have situations like this that come up, you have to have somebody to blame. So, and sometimes, if we're working in a company, working in an organization, and heads have to roll, somebody's head has to roll. And so the first thing you start doing is doing the whole blame game. This person did this person did that. And you may have individuals who said, I saw this coming. No one listened to me. And so you do have those situations where you can have someone who is a disgruntled employee and they just fire off, a social media post or, a Reddit post or something like that you have to derail from what you were trying to do and mitigate this issue. So that was very real world too.
And what's interesting I found is that first phase, the communication broke down. People were arguing amongst each other. Departments were like, this is your fault. This is your fault. There was a lot of finger pointing. And then when it came time to, let's read the statements. Let's see, what did you accomplish this phase? They realized, oh my gosh, we're not communicating. We're not accomplishing anything. And it quickly turned the tides where the C-level said, okay, guys, I'm taking control of the room. And they actually stepped into roles that, like the guy who was the CISO has never been a CISO in his life.
Right.
And he took the charge, and the CEO was like, okay, guys, everyone calm down. Here's the way we're going to run this. Yeah. And I was impressed watching them again get into these roles. It was really, really fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so interesting the psychology piece of this, because you talk about, it's a highly emotional topic, right? If an organization gets breached and your company gets breached, that's an emotionally charged event. So the first thing that's going to happen is, the amygdala is going to get hijacked. You're not really thinking because now you're in crisis mode. And so the first thing to do is to do exactly what they did, which was start blaming each other, start infighting, assigning blame. But, it's a good exercise to be able to say, you know what, let's take a step back. Let's think for a moment. Let's breathe. Mm-hmm. And let's figure this out as a team rather than the whole blame game and kind of butting heads with everybody. So it was a wonderful simulated exercise for that.
And one of the things, as we're talking about the security awareness series, that kind of hit me at the end when we had a post-mortem, right? So that's something you should do with every breach. So we have a post-mortem, and we asked the class, like, tell us, what did you learn? And a number of people said, I never thought about a breach from another department's angle. Like, I never thought about what legal would have to care about or what PR would have to care about. So all of a sudden their minds, like that, somebody actually said, I have more empathy now. Like, my mind is open to the stress that's going to occur in other departments, when he said, when I was through this before, it was just IT and that's all I cared about. And I thought, from a real world perspective, that's a nice learning point, that if you get to see, the other departments and their stress, and you would get to understand how that blends into the whole organization, that can change the way you react in a crisis.
Yeah, it really can. Especially, you think about larger organizations that we serve. It's very easy to work in silos, right? You have your responsibility, you have, your area of expertise, you have your job, you have your assignment, you do that very well. But do you really communicate? Do you really collaborate with those other groups, those other entities? And so, it's something to think about for not only for larger organizations, but also for smaller organizations. So sometimes we're a small company too.
Yeah.
And if we're not careful, we can become siloed and just hyper focused on doing our job. But how does that affect the other departments, and how does it affect the outcome of our work? If we're really not communicating as a team, on a regular basis. Actually, so it was a good learning experience for me personally.
That's a really great point, because let's even talk about that, Jowan. Like, we are a small company, only 16 people. But in the last few months, we started doing weekly leadership meetings. And the whole purpose of those was to make sure every department's aligned with our mission, vision, and values. Mm-hmm. And for me, as the CEO, it's been really eye-opening to realize that we kind of were siloed a little bit. Everyone had their own mission. But now, since we started aligning it, I'm seeing things happening in this company that I've not seen in 15 years, right? It's kind of mind blowing, right? To watch all the departments melding together. I mean, sales and marketing are now like best friends, it's like we're doing things here now. And I think that's a really valuable point, because I imagine as a massive company, it's probably even harder to do that than it is as a small company, because you got, let's say, 100,000 people. aligning mission, vision, and values with those is going to be much more difficult.
Yeah. You really have to pay really close attention to how you are moving as a company, whether you're small or large, because how you think about a team. The only way for a team to function properly and to have a clear objective as far as what you're going to accomplish as a team or as a company, you have to operate with trust.
Mm-hmm.
And that's oftentimes the first thing that breaks down when you have when you have something that breaks down. Yeah. Like this is, okay, who is the insider? Do we have an insider threat?
Yes.
Do we have somebody who's trying to sabotage our company? Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
That's the first thing that's attacked is trust.
Yep. And I see it. I mean, if that happened here, my first question to Carter would be, how did this happen, and whose fault is it? Like, is it our sysadmin company? Is it you? Like, whose head's got to roll right now because I'm ticked off? My company got breached, right? And going through that exercise, I'm like, oh yeah, like that would probably be, not probably, 100%. That is the wrong message to start off a breach, because don't assume that somebody made a flaw. Let's first find out really what are the facts. And when I noticed that C-level at the tabletop, they broke the three of them up into different. You said, oh, you're going to go talk to legal. You're going to talk to PR. You're going to talk to HR. And then we're all going to meet and group and kind of spread the message back. I thought that was genius, right? They conquered and divided. And by the end, their messaging was so clear that even with rogues in play and with negative morale points, they still were able to win, in essence, to win because of what they did.
Yeah. They did a very good job of coming together, and very short. I think at the end of phase 2, maybe going into 3, is really when they really started to meld and really to mesh as a team.
Yeah.
Where they weren't just working in silos anymore. But it took a little while, but they finally did get there to where even physically they would, because you had them broken up in groups of 3 or 4 and kind of spread out throughout a room. But if you notice, like once we got to phase 2, phase 3, they got up, walked over to each other. Yeah. They started mingling more. They started talking to each other. So they broke out of their own little groups and started to work together as a team. So you saw pockets of people, all gathered up trying to come up with messaging and stuff. So it was good that they kind of broke those walls down.
Yeah, I loved it. Yeah. Okay, so as we're coming to the end, Jowan, let's do this. If you could, what do you think is the 3 main points you would want anyone listening to this to think about with this topic of tabletop exercises?
I would say to be proactive instead of reactive when it comes to these types of events, because you think about growing up as children, we're conditioned to prepare for things. You think about being in school, what do you look forward to when you were in school? You're going through your boring math class, and all of a sudden the bell rings, and now it's a fire drill. Yay, you get to go outside, So everybody, they go outside and they line up in the grass, you're all excited that you got out of school, and then you have other types of events in sports. You have a 2-minute drill in football. You have, plays drawn up by the coach in basketball for what happens at the end of a game when it's crunch time, the game's on the line, and now we're in a mode where we have to execute and try to win this game, So there's set plays for that. So in sports. So you think about pretty much every facet of life, you prepare.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to business, sometimes a lot of companies will wait till something happens in order to prepare.
Yeah.
And so why not try to get ahead of that? Try to be proactive instead of reactive. And if a breach is going to happen, God forbid a breach happens to your organization, but if it were to happen, how would you react? If your people aren't prepared and they're not trained, because there's a thing called muscle memory that kicks in. So if you don't know what to do in a situation where, we experienced a situation recently at a public event where we had a threat actor able to get inside. Mm-hmm. And because he was able to do so because he blended in very nicely.
Yeah.
And our guard was down. And so that can happen in the business very, very quickly. So how do you train yourself to look out for some of those red flags, So those are probably the key things I would say is just try to be proactive instead of reactionary.
Yeah, for me, I think what kind of hit me is I was thinking about, I've never been a runner. And a couple of years ago, I was running my first 5K. And I go to Patrick, he's a big runner. And I said, okay, Patrick, how do I do this? How do I prep for this? And he says, okay, here's what I want you to do. I I want you to go out and I want you to run for 30 seconds, then walk as fast for 30 seconds, then run. I'm like, really? He said, just do this for a mile. So I did it. And then the next week he's like, now I want you to run for a minute and then walk for 30 seconds. Right. And eventually it was running the whole 5K was not hard. And I thought about that in reference to this. It's like, I would hate it if we had to plan for a breach when it actually happened. We should not be waiting. Like you said, proactive. I think this is the biggest point that I learned watching this. The other one for me is the communication gap. Right? It is when things are stressful. I'm guilty of this. We're all guilty of this. You get stressed. You say things you don't really mean. You say things a little too harshly. That can really wreck the progression, the ability to progress as a company. When we saw the communications breaking down and one guy in IT was like, well, this is not my fault. This is because, you didn't let us do the patch. And all of a sudden the CEO's like, whoa, I didn't know this. Like, what's going on? And now all of a sudden there's this argument. Things stopped. Progression stopped. And now it was just self-preservation. So for me, any company that's listening to this, these are some great learning lessons. Like, don't wait until it's too late. Like, get all your facts in a row now, because this is going to be a big deal if you have to deal with that. And tabletop exercises are a really wonderful way of gamifying it, but learning how your company is going to handle things in the event of something happening.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a wonderful way to it's a safe way, to talk about this, because you think about, the trust factor, and, there's no quicker way to erode trust than to blame someone that didn't do something, and that's exactly what would happen in a situation like that, and we saw it in the simulation exercise where they were accused of doing something that they didn't even do, and so, being able to work as a team and to build that and to have that trust before a breach, is going to be imperative, because what's going to happen during a breach, all the blame starts, flying around, then it's going to be very easy to point fingers. Whereas if you have that trust going in, you're going to give people the benefit of the doubt,
I love it. And I love our new series. I think even though it's the same name, I think this is going to be really beneficial for people. I think we have a nice, quick, 15, 20, 25-minute podcast to help people really start thinking about security awareness. Yeah. So thank you for being the first on this new series. I appreciate it.
I don't mind getting paid, Chris. I know I don't mind.
And I really hope everyone listening or watching enjoyed it. If you did, please give us a thumbs up or a like. And I mean this, send your suggestions in. If you have a topic that you want the social engineer team to discuss, put it in the notes or put it in the comments, and we will definitely add it to the list. We want to make sure that we're giving you information that is beneficial for you. So until next month, I don't even know what the topic is. Until next month, stay safe, plan ahead, and we'll see you next month. See you.